Thank you for joining me for Kitchen Spoons and Combat Boots. I'm Jessie Smith. For the month of November, we're doing something a little bit differently than we normally do. This month, we'll be releasing interviews with some of our leadership within the Vermont National Guard every Wednesday. We'll be posting a schedule so that you know which leaders will have their podcast interviews released on which Wednesday. If you have any suggestions for our future Leadership Connection episodes, please feel free to email me. I'm here with Colonel Roger Zeigler, and we are getting his take on all of our leadership questions. All right, sir, let's jump right in. What leadership qualities do you believe are essential?
So my years of experience have brought to bear the need, in my opinion, to be empathetic, to have a sense of integrity, to have integrity. That's, in my opinion, one of the most important of all. I think without that, you tend to veer away from, what you're really trying to get after when you're as a leader. I think moral courage is important. Once you identify what's right and wrong, you got to be able to apply yourself to commit to that answer, right? Being humble is important, and just, it's not necessarily a trait, but just being yourself, being just like everyone else. We're all human beings. We just happen to take different paths sometimes, and we get different levels of education. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and it's about just living together in harmony and trying to accomplish a mission together, right? So those are important to me. There are many others that I think are valuable, value added without a shadow of a doubt, but those are some of the core items that I try to live by in my leadership skills or my leadership positions.
I think those are pretty good ones too. How do you approach decision making when faced with adversity?
That's a very good question. We all get faced with adversity in our lives, without a shadow of a doubt. I'm not saying my approach is perfect. I do like to slow things down a little bit. I think we can, as human beings, have a tendency to overreact to bad situations, to obstacles in our way. Slowing things down and kind of analyzing the situation, asking yourself some questions, helps identify, maybe a path best taken to get you out of the woods, for the lack of a better term. I also, as I'm analyzing, try to think about who else can help me out in a situation. We oftentimes in life get into a fear-based situation. We make assumptions about things, whether it's about ourselves or about the environment that we're in. And sometimes we need a second opinion to help us see through, the obstacle, to help us get to the other side. So, then once I've kind of done that, I start gathering facts and assumptions, things that we may have or I think of immediately when a situation happens. Sometimes or oftentimes are not entirely true. There are things that we come up with and believe are true based on, a past thing that may have happened to us, an observation. But in all of that, there are things that may have been absent from what you've gleaned from that situation. So, it's gathering facts and assumptions. That's a pretty typical military incorporation of a past process, military decision-making process. But I think gathering those facts and assumptions, working through the assumptions that turning them into facts, really do help you get to a solution that is workable and is achievable. And then, with everything, have an understanding that to fix things or to get past an adversity or through an adversity, it takes time. And you can't change things in a minute. So to have, that calmness and understanding about that certainly will get anybody through anything, in my opinion. Again, I can't emphasize sometimes getting help to get through that is very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Having people around you who can help with that is very valuable. All right. Now, I know you're approachable as a leader because you're my brigade commander.
Thank you.
But how do you manage to stay approachable as a leader?
So, despite what you just stated, there have been times in my past, to be with full disclosure, that I have not always been seen. I have not been seen as approachable. Mm-hmm. I do have somewhat of a stern look, but I think to get past that with people, it's you got to come to them sometimes. You have to go to others to make them feel like you're someone that they can approach and have a continued conversation or relationship with. Again, being humble about things, being just a person, just like everyone else, is very positive when it comes to trying to be approachable. Again, there are many ways of presenting yourself to be approachable, but those are some of the things, again, that I've had to work on and that I use to try to be that way with people. Sometimes a smile helps, right? A smile does help, and it does help kind of soften the situation, the environment where people will be a little bit more relaxed. And a part of the approach piece, sometimes, when you're sharing stories or situations, people realize, oh, wow, you went through something just like I am, or life isn't just full of rainbows for you. You have gone through adversity, just like maybe something that I'm going through. So getting on an even playing field and letting them know, again, you're human too, is very helpful in creating an approachable situation.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy how sometimes rank allows people to forget that human aspect of people. Yeah,
absolutely. And many conversations that I get into, I'll cover my rank up and I'll say, rank aside, let's just be two people. Mm. And I think that's important. It kind of grounds the situation and helps, what may be an obstacle for them or others to be able to have an open conversation about things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What is one common leadership mistake you have seen or made? Not trying to dig out your skeletons here, but
hey, that's a very good question. I think one that many of us can learn from. Right? I have made this mistake before, and I have seen this. I don't know if it's maybe the most common, but it's certainly one that I've just noticed a lot. And so, my answer to this question is always: usually the leader doesn't take the time to identify all the facts. Now, previously in one of the questions, part of my answer was gather facts and assumptions, right? I think that oftentimes we as leaders can jump to conclusions. We think we've got all the right details in front of us to make a decision, a command decision, a disciplinary decision. And again, sometimes we just got to slow down and make sure that we ask all the right people, ask all the right questions to the best of our ability. We're all human, right? But there needs to be some time and assurance put toward what you're trying to get out of the the conversation or whatever the situation is you're trying to get a decision made toward. And I think that oftentimes is overlooked. It's sped through, and bad decisions are made, or less right decisions. And I think we as leaders do need to kind of slow down. We need to ask more questions. And sometimes it's a question that's not thought of that has the key to the treasure box that one helps that individual out that may be going through something, or will help resolve the problem that's been presented. So I made that sound easy, I guess. Easier said than done, we hear sometimes. But certainly that's my approach.
No, that's a good one, for sure. All right. How would you describe the culture in the organization that you command? And this is a trick question because I'm in the organization that you command.
You can keep me honest. That's something every commander does have to work through and identify, because we can sometimes get blinded by what we believe we've instilled or tried to steer the organization to be like, but it isn't always true. And so you've got to ask yourself, have I achieved that? And what do I need to do to make change to get there? So I rely on my sergeant major, command sergeant major, Digby before, now Kontos. Those individuals really get to experience a lot of conversations with all the members, the team members in the regiment. So they give me a sense of how people are thinking, feeling. And then, you just, through observation on how service members or team members are acting, reacting with one another, with others, you observe whether or not they're taking on what you have been trying to instill upon them. So with those couple pieces of information, I get to make a determination, what that culture is like. Now, to answer your question, I believe that the regiment's culture is full of people that have a desire, that want to help and educate men and women that are in the military. They want to be teachers, and that's what the regiment's all about. They want to increase those individuals' organizational knowledge, help them be a better leader. And I think we have people throughout the organization that want to do that and aspire to do that. I also think we got people in the organization to kind of jump off of that statement, that they want to help others. I've got multiple examples where our own team members will go help someone out with a flooding issue, at their house, or hey, someone's struggling with a personal issue, and they meet them after work and talk through that with them. So you don't just build that per se. That does take some leadership, some information, some guidance, that you want people to behave and act like that. Now, I believe there's certainly some people in the organization that's truly them to a T. Most people want to help each other out. They really do. And I'd like to think that the leadership team that's there now, we just create an environment in which that is fostered, and people feel like they have the initiative and the ability to take action when those situations come up. And that, to me, that's important. We all want to be a part of an organization that feels welcomed, feels appreciated, included, and that's what I believe we have. Now, I'm not going to be naive. It's not perfect, but I believe we have a great organization and a great culture.
I can back you up on that.
Thank you.
All right. So now moving on to some of the more fun questions, for me at least. What are your holiday traditions, Thanksgiving or Christmas?
I am not one that typically has a tradition that I do over and over. But I will say, so for Thanksgiving, growing up as a child, my parents are really football fans. So Thanksgiving, it was always a football game. I still watch a football game on Thanksgiving Day. So that's one thing that has been pretty much a standard, if you want to call it a tradition, sure. But probably more important for me, I just love being a part of making the meal. So that in and of itself is a tradition for me. Christmas, I want to say up to this point, pretty much since my wife and I have been married, we watch White Christmas on every Christmas season. So that's pretty much been a tradition, something we do every year. So those are my answers.
Yeah. All right. What is your favorite Thanksgiving food?
That's a hard question. I'm gonna use, my answer is gonna be a turkey drumstick. I don't eat turkey very often. Certainly not a true roasted turkey every day. That's a once in a year type of a meal for me, and that's a lot of the other things I get here and there in other meals. But that's I'm going to say that's my favorite.
That's a great answer.
Yes.
All right. Would you rather cook the entire Thanksgiving meal yourself or do all the dishes alone after?
That depends. If it's just me, then I would just rather cook it all by myself and leave the dishes for later. Generally, I have Thanksgiving or at least some kind of event meal with other people, and a part of I think that meal is coming together and cooking together. So I still want to say I would rather cook it. I wouldn't want to cook it by myself, only for the fear of everyone else that might be eating it. I'm not the best cook. So if that was a thing that I would want to take in consideration for the safety and welfare of everyone else in the house, I would say I'm probably better off doing the dishes. So there's my answer.
That's a very honest answer. I like that. All right. What are you thankful for?
That's a pretty loaded question. I'm honestly thankful for a lot. I'm thankful for life, love, liberty, freedom in this country we live in. I'm thankful for my beautiful wife, the love that she gives, and the relationship we have. I'm thankful for friends and family. Again, back to some of my previous gestures about helping each other out. Those are some of just a handful of things I'm thankful for. There's a lot more. Thankful to be able to join the military and be the man that I'm sitting here across from the table with you. I certainly feel like I probably would have been maybe a little bit different if I hadn't gone that route. There's a lot to be thankful for. Most importantly, friends and family, all the time. They get you through the thick and the thin, boy, it makes you feel good when you get to help someone out and you're on the receiving end.
Yeah. All right. If you could have any famous person, dead or alive, for Thanksgiving dinner, who would it be and why?
My answer to that is going to be I have not been a person that really puts a lot of credence to famous people, to be honest. I have more value to the neighbor that I get to experience life with, to my friends, my family. I would rather have a house full of just people that I know, because I can have good, honest, open conversations with them. With the celebrity, all right, so it's kind of cool. I might, giggle a little bit, trying to stumble through a conversation with them. But, at the end of the day, I don't know them. I can't quite say that they would enjoy knowing me per se. It'd be kind of an awkward conversation. So I would much rather just be with friends and family. My colleagues in the military, friends in the military. That's what I would prefer.
That's a good answer.
Thanks.
All right. Now the surprise question.
Okay.
Would you rather get chased by a wild turkey or get chased by a wild reindeer?
Being chased is not fun in either situation. Turkeys are fast, mind you. Reindeer do have a longer stride. So from a survivability standpoint, I'd probably say a wild turkey. I can be pretty fast, and I think maybe I can outrun a turkey.
Yeah. I think that's a good answer. I feel like there's a wrong and a right answer to that question. There's not even a in between. But yeah, so that is all that I have for questions. Is there anything that you want to say to our viewers?
I think, on the topic of leadership, it is important that this organization, the Vermont National Guard, does have leaders that are trustworthy, do have a sense of integrity, and the moral courage to make all the right decisions. So I challenge all of us leaders, young, old, despite your background, despite what education you've had. Learn from one another, find a mentor, again, find those characteristics and traits that are of value to you and that will help instill a good set of leaders in the organization that will carry us forward into what is going to be probably a challenging time in the future. And I think we need that. The organization needs leaders that will, answer the call, whether it's about the good or the bad. And we certainly need to build that moral base. And I'm not saying that I'm the perfect leader, but there is something to having someone that you can go have a conversation about leadership, and to make a right size your type of leadership approach to situations. Again, I wasn't necessarily born with leadership traits. I've learned quite a bit, and I'd like to think that that's been very beneficial for me leading up to the current command position that I'm in. And I just, again, challenge everyone, go seek out those leaders, find a mentor, and let's do what's best for this organization.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for joining me and having this
having
little chat. Stay tuned for our next guest. I'm here with Major Sarah Palhete, and we have some questions for her. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so let's just get into it.
Yep.
What leadership qualities do you believe are essential?
So in the military, we obviously have the Army values. There is one quality that I draw to the most, that has stuck with me since I first joined the military, and that's humility. There's a lot of things we can teach soldiers. Inherently, we carry values through our traditions, the values that we learn in the military. But the most successful leaders that I've seen are the ones that hold humility at heart. And that's the one that I value the most.
I love that answer.
Yeah.
I really do. How do you approach decision-making when faced with adversity?
Patience. It's always about balancing the dichotomies of leadership. I think oftentimes we're always in a hurry to make a decision. So I kind of resist that. I've taught myself to kind of work through reverse osmosis, take a knee, right? We all often refer to that as tactical patience. In my opinion, some of the best decisions and some of the things that we can really process come better with time.
Yeah, for sure. How do you manage to stay approachable as a leader?
This specific question is the funniest, because one of the things that I've learned about myself is at face value, I know I can look as if I'm not approachable. I generally have a very stoic demeanor, and I recognize that as a leader, and that's something that I've tried to work on over years and years and years of practice. But the most important thing is I really try to lean forward and start conversations if somebody tends to be a little bit more standoffish. So a lot of that is just really work through the conversational piece and building that trust and comfort with people.
Yeah, absolutely. What is one common leadership mistake that you've seen or made?
Well, I know I've made very many mistakes throughout my career. I think it goes back to what I discussed earlier, which is balancing the dichotomy of leadership. It's this wonderful thing when it's going well, but when it's not going well, easy mistakes are made. When do you need to be firm versus a little bit more flexible? Decisive versus giving somebody a little bit more wiggle room to make decisions on their own accord and see what they do with it. It's not generally balanced or discussed often in our career, right? The Army does a really good job about teaching us about the aspects of leadership and what we should do by rank, by position accordingly. But something that is not worked on a continuous basis is like the art and science of those dichotomies. The right answer versus the wrong answer. I mean, there's obvious right answers and wrong answers throughout our career. But the art piece of leadership, that's really where you can create some imbalances if you're not self-aware and really working on some of your traits, your strengths, and your weaknesses.
That's where a good mentor would come into play.
Correct.
Right. How would you describe the culture in the organization that you lead?
The culture, not to be confused with climate. Undeniably hardworking. The privilege to come over to RRB and experience the world that it is like no other. I think, I know for a fact throughout my career, I've always been in parallel with RRB. I'm a product of the RSP program when I first enlisted in 2004, and the program was really kind of starting up. I always knew I wanted to give back to RRB, just never knew in what capacity or how I could do that. I think throughout the years, that's why I placed emphasis in contributing to providing recruiters leads and referrals of sorts, and always supporting my unit recruiter when I was a company commander. The culture, literally from the lowest ranking person all the way on up, is the level of commitment that every recruiter has is unexplainable until you see it firsthand. I have men and women that are often working 3, if not 4 weekends a month. They are supporting not just trying to get recruits into the Vermont National Guard. They support their current recruits that they brought in already, whether it's driving them to RSP drill weekend, taking care of them as if they were their own soldier. The sacrifices they make, the difficulty to really balance work-life family balance. Many of them have young kids, and I'm very, very cognizant of the schedule that they work. There is so much expected of them, both from internal to the battalion, as much as those that they support outside of the battalion, and makes me better every day to come in to make sure that I'm doing my part. But yeah, that's the biggest thing that resonates with me.
Awesome. That's a great answer.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to move on to some of the fun stuff. What are your holiday traditions, Thanksgiving or Christmas?
The biggest one for my family is Christmas Eve specifically. So I come from a very large Portuguese family. Christmas Eve is the making and breaking of the new wine that was harvested, made by family. We bring in the traditional foods. It's typically a big event that's held at my mother's house. Roughly 40 people at any given time. My grandmother usually joins us from Portugal. She'll come typically around November, and stay through late spring, usually. But everybody gathers around. We play this Portuguese game called Sueca till about 11:30. Typically, we'll go to midnight mass. But that is the one that kind of stands out to me just because of the amount of people that show up.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. All right, what is your favorite Thanksgiving food?
For me, I don't have a favorite. No, if there was something that was going to resonate with me, it's apple pie, specifically with vanilla ice cream. And mainly because of the story behind it. My parents, for over 20 years, owned a Portuguese bakery in Connecticut called Rita's Bakery. And I've spent many a year, up until I was the age of 18, making hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of apple pie. So I'm pretty picky when it comes to the apple pies, but if there's a good one, it brings me back to those memories around Thanksgiving.
That's great.
Yep.
Right. Would you rather cook the entire Thanksgiving meal yourself or do all the dishes alone afterwards?
Oh, I would definitely cook. Hands down. Every bit of it.
Same. Yeah. Anyone else can do the dishes. Anyone.
Absolutely.
What are you thankful for?
Life. Just the gift that we have every day. Really, it's really that simple. Each and every day brings its own adventure, good, bad. or indifferent. But every day we get to wake up and start the next day, to start over, whether you had a bad day, to start something new. But to experience this life at any given day is such a gift, and I value that every single day.
Yeah. Okay. If you could have any famous person, dead or alive, over for Thanksgiving dinner, who would it be and why?
Marcus Aurelius. Not because he was an emperor, but because of who he was fundamentally as a person. The goodness that he carried, even, for somebody that was so famous and so high on the totem pole, if you will, he carried a lot of the value that I talked about earlier, which was humility, and really being a good person for himself and for other people. And he was always refining his craft as a leader, and making sure that he remained grounded in those foundations in practice, not just in speech, but in practice in everyday living. It would definitely be Marcus Aurelius.
Plus, just think of the stories.
Yeah.
All right, so now here's the surprise question.
Okay.
Would you rather get chased by a wild turkey or a wild reindeer?
That's a good one. I would put my money on wanting to be chased by a wild turkey, because I can at least catch it with my bare hands and then put it on my table later on.
That's a great answer.
Thanks.
My daughter, for some reason, said she would choose the reindeer just because she felt like it would be more glory.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, but I think we would have more success with the turkey.
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
have to agree there.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for letting me pick your brain.
You're welcome.
For more information or support, please reach out to the Vermont Military Family Support Center's toll-free number, 888-607-8773.
The preceding content does not constitute endorsement by the Department of the U.S. Army, U.S. Air Force, Vermont National Guard, or Vermont Military Family Programs of the organization's products and services contained therein. Further, the Vermont Military Family Programs assumes no responsibility for the consequences of using the products or services provided by the organizations or resources listed. Vermont Military Family Programs makes every effort to present our clients with reputable resources. We cannot guarantee the validity of said resources, and the use of such resources is voluntary.